What are cocktail bitters and why should we use them in our cocktails? Now, to answer this, let me take you back to kitchens and cooking some 20 odd years ago, maybe even longer. Back then, as our palates had evolved, I'm probably talking longer ago than that if I'm being really honest, but as our palates have evolved through the ages, we've started to call for salt and pepper more to elevate those flavors in our food because, as I say, our palates have developed. You know, whether it's meat or tomatoes or a Sunday roast or a sandwich, we just instantly grab for the salt and pepper pots to really make those dishes, those meals shine. Now, if we come forward to more recent times, our palates have evolved even more. And while salt and pepper is still obviously a thing, we have sought out other interesting herbs and spices. And if you look at people's spice ranks now, we won't typically have like 1 or 2 different spices. In some households, you'll be looking at 10. In some households, you'll be looking at 50, 60 different herbs and spices filling up spice racks. But of course, it hasn't stopped there because even in more recent times, you know, the explosion, certainly in the last couple of years for me, the explosion of MSG has been a huge thing. I've seen people use Parmesan, not just on Italian dishes. Parmesan has got that lovely kind of umami flavor that elevates flavors. I've seen people use shiitake mushrooms to elevate flavors. I'm not just talking frying off some mushrooms now, I'm talking for seasoning. And the other big one is seaweed. Heck, even my favorite Cornish salt people have got multiple different types and flavors of salt, all with the one objective to enhance your food. In this day and age, you're not just going to take like the most basic meal, take a piece of steak out of the fridge, let it rest and whack that on the grill and put some chips in the oven or your air fryers or whatever you've got, cook them, pop them on a plate and just eat them. That is rarely ever going to happen. There's all kinds of rubs for your meats, there's all kinds of salts and peppers, and even these days I've seen chips with like rosemary, truffle, sea salt on them. Flavors have just been elevated. Now, if you can understand the food side of this, perhaps you can now sort of understand the bar side of this, the drink side of this. And as we've kind of evolved as cocktail bartenders and mixologists, again, I've never called myself a mixologist. I'm not a mixologist, I'm a cocktail bartender. But those mixologists have really sort of broken boundaries and strided for new flavors, new textures to enhance their cocktails. Gone are the days, even here on my channel, gone are the days where I would make a pina colada with just rum, pineapple juice and coconut. At the very least, I'm going to be adding my saline solution to that, my salt to that cocktail, just to amplify that coconut and that pineapple note. So in real world terms, bitters, cocktail bitters, are a bartender's way of elevating drinks. They come in all different shapes and sizes. The brand that I work with, you can see there, Miss Better's Bitters. There's a whole load there. I've got stuff up the top there. I've got Bob's and Bittermans down there. I've got lots. Even here, I think I've got over 50 different types of bitters. Now, if you're still looking for an out-and-out definition of what cocktail bitters are, I did run it through ChatGPT to see what she would come out with. And her definition is this. Cocktail bitters are concentrated. I've added in alcoholic and non-alcoholic because there are plenty of non-alcoholic bitters out there these days. But so cocktail bitters are highly concentrated alcoholic and non-alcoholic aromatic flavorings made from herbs, spices, roots and botanicals. Okay, they add complexity, depth and balance to cocktails, enhancing both sweet and savoury notes. That for me sums it up in a nutshell. If you can understand why we flavour and enhance food, you can perhaps now understand why we enhance our drinks. Now, seasoning in cocktails is not a new thing. It has been around centuries, okay? Now, if we take Miss Better's Bitters out of the spotlight for just 2 seconds, these two little bad boys stem back to the early 1800s. Perhaps not used in the same way that they are these days, but did very quickly get added to cocktails, Angostura especially. You know, way before the turn of 1900s, they were flavour enhancers for their favourite rum cocktails. Now, these three would be simply classed as aromatic bitters. And the thing I point out, or try to point out quite a lot, is because I use Miss Betty's bitters, is that aromatic bitters is just an overriding term, okay? Do not think of them as a set recipe, because all three of these are aromatic bitters, and yet all three of these taste drastically different and will alter the taste of your drinks. If we're just looking for the classic sort of dark and stormy cocktail here, where you would typically go for Angostura bitters, because of the different flavour combinations, just in bitters alone, you can make three totally different drinks. And what they are, what aromatic bitters are, loosely termed, is those sort of spices and herbs from the Caribbean. Think cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, you know, sometimes some star anise in there, sometimes other kind of things that they might have picked up on the spice trail from India that have landed in the Caribbean. Now again, like the food category and all our flavours like MSG and the seaweed and the parmesan that I talked about, like that, obviously cocktail bitters have evolved too, because we are now in a world where aromatic bitters are pretty much, you know, not died a death, but they are pretty much just standard, and people strive for different flavors. You can see the Miss Betty's bitters line up behind me here. I've lost track of how many there are now, 15, 16, 17, maybe slightly more, but we've got everything from pineapple and star anise, banana and bergamot. One of my favorites down there, Mount Fuji, which is dandelion, chrysanthemum, burdock and yuzu. They're all super highly concentrated, bitter tasting flavour enhancers. Another point to note, some brands like Fee Brothers and some of Bob's, for example, go down the route of just having one. Fee Brothers are famous for lemon bitters, peach bitters, plum bitters, rhubarb bitters, whereas and Bob's have got vanilla, ginger bitters, peppermint bitters. They kind of do that, but also Bob's and Miss Betty's bitters do that whole blending of different flavours together. For instance, in the brand new chili bitters from Miss Betty's, Capsicist, I've completely forgotten now because this is brand new, but I think there's 4 different types of chili that have gone into that. Let's just give you a little close up on that, just in case we didn't pick that up. These are my new favourite little beastie boys. So when we look at cocktail bitters, I think while I'm as guilty as anyone of just calling it seasoning our cocktails, I think we do, and I've made a conscious effort to try to do this over the last sort of year or so, at least, you know, 4 or 5 months at the very least, is try to call them flavour enhancers, because seasoning just alludes that you're kind of just bringing out certain flavours in there, whereas bitters these days, because of different flavours, different aromas, actually not only enhance but elevate and add a touch more, a different dimension to drinks. I think for me, the one term that I wrote down when I was planning this video, bitters for me are simply a way of adding bold or subtle nuances to cocktails without adding sweetness. I think that pretty much sums them up. If you've not got bitters yet, I would advise you just to start off with aromatic and go from there. But there are multiple brands for you to play around with. You don't have to stick to one brand. You know, there are many, many different solutions, but just try one bottle at a time and add something to your favorite cocktail to see what it does to it. Even if your favorite is the pina colada or the woo-woo, I add saline to both of those, but adding something different, a different type of bitters, will probably make that cocktail even tastier.